Okay, it is 1:30, so we'll get started. Good afternoon. I'm Trish Lofton. I'm Administrative Assistant for the Curris Center Administration Office, and I'm also Staff Congress President. And I want to welcome you to our second forum for our Staff Regent candidate. Today's forum is being streamed live, and it's going to be on Facebook and I think YouTube. Is that correct, Orwell? If you didn't get a chance to see yesterday's forum, it is on YouTube, and there's a link on the Staff Congress Facebook page, or if you need that, we can email that to you. This special election is to fill the remainder of the term that was left vacant by Dr. Jessica Evans. The term will run about December 15th through June 30th of next year. And I'll start with the candidates. We'll start in alphabetical order. We've got Dedrick Brooks, he's the Director of Institutional Research in the Institutional Effectiveness Office. Leannna McClure, Coordinator of First Year Academic Advising in the Center for Student Engagement and Success. Audrey Neal, Director of Talent Search for TRIO, and Dr. J. David Wilson, Director of Housing. I'm going to turn the forum over to Orville, and he's going to explain, he's our Credentials and Elections Committee Chair, and he's going to outline the format of how the forum is going to go.
Okay, you guys will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. We'll start with Leanne and then work our way across the table. And then each one of you will get a chance to be the first person to answer the question. And we'll work across on that one also. So, and that should be something that we'll do. We've got the time clock. Can everybody see it? And I will probably do a countdown whenever we get to the final 10 seconds. So you see my hands go up. It's not a praise and worship session. It's a thing that you're in. The end is coming, and you better grab it. You will have 2 minutes on the questions to answer those. And once again, we'll signal as time's up. And at the end of the forum, you will have 3 minutes to give a closing statement. So I think that is pretty much it.
Okay, and then we will start down here at the other end. We'll start, David, we'll let you go first. So I'll turn the floor over for your introduction.
No, I'll go first. Okay, hey, my name is David Wilson. I'm the Director of Housing. I've been at Murray State for 27 years now. I've worked in housing for that full time. I've worked with student affairs, and I've also worked with, and now I work in auxiliaries. So I've been on both sides of the fun place. For me, the idea about Staff Regent, I have been involved with Staff Congress for 8 years or so now. I spent 2 years as Staff Congress President. During that time, I was able to start our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee that we had not had before. I was also able to work on and start the process to get some training for supervisors that we have been talking about for several years, trying to have done. I've been on several different committees and dealing with staff survey is one of my favorite committees because I do really enjoy seeing what the staff have to say about life. Sometimes staff have not learned, guys, please use periods and commas and make paragraphs. It would be wonderful because sometimes I get lost. But, you know, my feeling is for me as I look at this, because what's funny is we'll say, you're going to ask us, what is your goals? You know, really we get 2 meetings. It's really all we're going to get. The March meeting and maybe the June meeting if it's earlier. So there's not a lot we can do, but I think the things that I would like to look at is I really feel like we continue to look at a more structured opportunity for raises for staff. I think we have to look, because the raises take about $800,000 for 1%, I feel like we've got to look at other ways we can help staff. How do we benefits? How does that work? I know they're working on the remote work, but I also think there's staff that can't have that option to work, especially think of the down at facilities management. You can't do it on HVAC, you can't do it with plumbing, you can't do electric. We can't give everybody the same thing, but what can we do to sort of make some equity as we do this? I feel like that we have a lot of stuff in the staff survey that talks about the ability to fill positions in a timely manner, and the fact that we're having to spread that out, work to other people, but there's no compensation with them for doing that. I know specifically because I was associate director and director for 5 years for housing. The last thing is I look at this, well, one thing really I feel we need to work again to continue to involve extended campuses more so on campus. And the last thing for me is the staff survey has shown over the last few years, there's a lot of people that don't feel important in their job. They don't feel appreciated. They feel like they're being bullied. They feel like that it's just not fun for them. I hate we have to ask the question, have you thought about leaving Murray State? And we get those answers, but I really think I would like to try to work on ways that we can increase the morale on campus and that we can help staff know how to appreciate each other. I'd appreciate your vote. Sponsored by David Wilson. Thank you.
Audrey?
Hi everybody, my name is Audrey Neal. I want to thank you for being here. I currently work in the TRIO office over in Student Affairs. TRIO is a series of federal grant programs that serve low-income, first-generation students. I'm the director of 2 talent search grants. We serve about 1,000 students over 10 schools in this area. I supervise a staff of 5 there. Been employed here at the university for 6 years now. This is actually my 2nd round of employment with Murray State. I was also employed here from 2007 to 2012 over in the College of Education as part of the Gear Up grant, which is a similar college access program. I got my undergraduate degree here, got both my masters here. My husband works in network operations. He's been here for 15 years. Both of our daughters have gone to school here, son-in-law. So Murray State has kind of been what we've done. While I've not been employed here all this time, I've been part of this campus and this community for the last 20 years now, 23 years. And so I can say personally that I love being part of this community, but I know that we have staff who can't necessarily say that their jobs and their positions here are more kind of out of necessity. And I think the primary work that I want to do, while there are things, you know, I think we'll all sit up here and say some of the same things today, just like we did yesterday. There are issues that are important, like pay raises, like benefits, like remote and flexible work policy. I think for me, it's building that sense of community here on campus. I've worked with a Starting Gate program for the past 3 years that works with first-year freshmen when they come to campus. And we bring them here early because the thing that we've discovered that helps them be most successful is building that sense of community early on. And regardless of the things that they encounter, the issues and obstacles throughout the semester, the ones who've built that community early on are the ones that have been most successful and can kind of work through any of those issues that they face. And so I kind of feel like if we can continue to do that with our staff, that's the key to changing the morale and changing kind of the overall work environment here. Obviously, there are physical things that we need to tackle, like work-life balance and issues like that. But the mechanisms to let those changes happen aren't mechanisms that we have a lot of control in. We have a voice through Staff Regent at the board meetings. We have a presence on some of the committees. But I think there are other places kind of behind the scenes in the work that Staff Congress does and the work that some of the other committees do, and just the work we do within our departments where we can make some of those other changes happen.
Dedrick?
Hi, my name is Dedrick Brooks, and thank you guys for being here today, and thank you guys for viewing on Facebook. Again, my name is Dedrick Brooks, and I'm the Director of Institutional Research. I've been a part of the Murray State family for 4 years, 9 months, and 6 days now. So I'm also a Murray State alumnus, and back in 2022, I was nominated and selected to be a part of CPE's Academic Leadership Development Institute program, which gave me the opportunity to learn about future CPE projects and performance metrics, which weigh a lot on a lot of Kentucky universities and colleges. Also, I am currently a part of Leadership Murray, the 23-24 class, and I've gotten the opportunity to see what the great businesses and good services that Murray State has to offer, which does truly make Murray, Kentucky the greatest place we know, the finest place we know. I am really passionate about being a voice for the staff members. That's one thing that I had mentioned yesterday. And again, like this vote itself, it's not based off of my personal opinions. It's based off of the staff's votes. Again, I actually serve on Staff Congress, and I know that all of us will eventually say the exact same thing. staff members are pretty much wanting someone that is willing to work with administration to find a way that we can get wage increases. They also want transparency across the board. Some are actually thinking about summer work flexible schedules. But at the end of the day, it's getting the opportunity to talk to the individual staff on campus to find out what they actually want and what they actually need, and working with administration to make these things happen. And as staff regents, as being candidates, we also have to remember that we don't know everything. Sometimes it's going to take us learning things about what goes on at the Board of Regents meetings and what we can actually do to move the agenda forward for the betterment of the staff members. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Leannna McClure, and I'm the coordinator for first-year academic advising in the Center for Student Engagement and Success, which is part of Student Affairs. And I appreciate you all coming today and being here and also watching online. This is a great opportunity to watch all of us talk about how well we can represent you. And that is the goal that I have as part of this panel. I would like to represent all of the staff as I feel I have been represented in my own office. I'm privileged, as I mentioned yesterday, to work in an office that allows me to express opinions and also suggest new ideas, and so I'm very thankful for that. I do feel like that's something that all staff deserve on campus and don't have, is representation or support in their offices to be able to suggest ideas or talk about why things are the way that they are. And so that's one of the things that I've always had a goal of doing, is increasing efficiencies when I'm in any position, but also to look at other university policies and procedures to see how we can break down barriers. As I mentioned yesterday, oftentimes there are silos on campus that don't need to be there, and so one of the things that I feel like I've done well is create relationships through all of the roles that I've held on campus. So prior to coming to Student Affairs, I worked for the Registrar's Office, so I have supported both Academic Affairs mission and Student Affairs mission, and I have had the opportunity to work with faculty and staff collaboratively. So I think that's very important to note as we look at shared governance, because so many decisions have to be made by all of us to support our students. I came to Murray State in 2007, and I've held just about every type of employment. I was a student worker, a graduate assistant, a teaching assistant, and I've been full-time since 2011. I got my bachelor's degree here and my master's degree here. I term myself a lifer. To some of you, you've probably heard me say that. But I would like other people to be able to see themselves as lifers as well. So they start here and they end here. Outside of Murray State, I do currently serve on the Board of Trustees at my church, and I'm currently the secretary of that board as well, so I do understand the importance of speaking up on behalf of a larger population, and that's what I would do, is represent those that feel like they can't speak up to make sure their voice is heard. Thank you.
Okay, and we have questions.
Okay. First question is, since there are limited resources to fund COLA raises, what ideas do you have that will provide opportunities for staff to receive an increase in compensation?
Yeah, we'll start with you.
So, knowing that I don't know exactly where we could look to dip into resources, I do think if we examine how we currently operate, there are opportunities that we could find pockets of funding for incentives or extra compensation for employees. I was just thinking this morning, I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I've often thought about the energy savings that we have in the winter. And so I don't know if we could implement something similar in the summer to be able to save some cost in one area to move over to another for staff recognition or appreciation or even just a one-time bonus. I do think it's important too that we find opportunities, funding opportunities, however those may come, from outside organizations or community members to provide our staff with some extra benefit for the things that they do with those partners, as well as the extra certification and education that they receive through programs like Dedrick's part of Leadership Murray. I think it's important that we look to recognize those achievements outside of Murray State because they just help our staff improve themselves and therefore improve our campus.
Dedrick?
Oh, okay, so I do get to this, get to a point where, in my opinion, it's gonna be like, what can we offer benefit-wise? Because sometimes I know that it might be that we give additional time off or vacation time or something of that nature, or can we actually pretty much examine the board book and actually see what programs and things of that nature that we can actually say, okay, without cutting programs that are actually needed and things of that nature, but just evaluating the board book itself, just to know, where all that actual funding is going. And so I think it does come back in like staff recognition programs and things of that nature that we can actually utilize as benefits and perks and things of that nature. And sometimes maybe it is like a flexible schedule in the summer, and David actually mentioned that not all people are going to actually be able to have that flexible remote schedule in the summer. So what can we actually do for those individuals? But if we did something like a summer schedule or something like that, it would kind of be like, I mean, people are actually utilizing maybe Wi-Fi and things like that at home and stuff of that nature. Or maybe it's working, giving people something to look for, like a 4-day week instead of actually having a 5-day week where you have Friday off, where you can actually have a longer weekend or something like that. But I think it's just evaluating like what we actually have in our board book and like what we can actually do benefit-wise. So.
Thank you. Audrey?
This is something I think that's been brought up a few times in previous meetings where I've said, I know I've been in meetings with Jessica Evans where, in some budget advisory meetings where, we know that the request for COLAs and the request for raises is going to come up every year. So forward planning becomes really essential at that point, right? Not trying to scramble each year to say, where can we come up with this money? But as David's mentioned, looking ahead and coming up with some kind of a scale or a way to implement those raises over a period of time, but that's not just a year-to-year kind of thing. I know that Staff Congress is currently working with some of their committees on looking at a way to implement, to approach the board about implementing years of service pay raises and building that into the system. And so that would be a way that could be more easily planned for. So once you're here for 5 years or 10 years or whatever that system looks like, there's going to be an increase of pay that comes along with that. And then like everybody else is going to mention, there's that look for where can we find places where we can offer additional benefits, offer additional programs. Obviously a summer schedule, that would be a great way to make that happen. A discount on parking. That would be a great thing to see happen. We've talked about wellness center access. The issue is that both of those things, I think the budget and the revenue of those departments are tied to the money that they make off of us, right? So that the way they operate, a percentage of that comes from our money. So again, you have to find a way to replace that with what we're giving staff. So it's not an easy answer anyway, or that you look at it, but I think there's long-term work that can be done, and being part of that is definitely something I would want to work toward.
David?
Honestly, this is a loaded question because there's not a swell of money out there to throw to raises. It's just not there. I've been in enough budget meetings. my budget is 15 million for my department, and I know I have to go through expenses, everything to get to a point to what do I have left. And I think that's where we face a challenge. We're at a point now with our budget, that unless we have more money from the state, there's not that money that's coming in for us to give for raises. And as much as I believe that we should have those, as much as I would like for those, you know, I think really, like everyone has said, we've got to find ways that we can support our staff that may not be straight dollars in their pocket. And I know some people don't like that. You know, young kids, they just want the dollars. I talked to my son, he works in the bookstore. Well, I don't make enough money. And I said, well, but you order DoorDash 7 times a week and twice on Sunday. I think that looking at how we can give benefits, try to do more stuff that we can. And I know that's very general, and you'll say, well, what are your specific answers? I think really, to really delve into that question, whoever gets in this position has got to get in the budget book. Has got to look at the budget and talk about it. If you remember, those of you who have been here a little while, a few years ago, we did those budget reviews. And we had several committees that were looking, and my committee said, get rid of all the printers and get one set of printers. Now, years later, we did that, but did it save us any money per se? I don't know. You know, we talk about the savings from utilities, but I can tell you that we don't really get a lot of savings from that, because the utilities are split in quadrants, and it goes out, and like, I've got rid of 3 buildings, but I pay the same utility bill I paid when I had those 3 buildings up and running with 8 or 9 buildings. So I think it comes down to looking toward our staff for questions and focus groups. Give me some ideas about what you think we can do. What benefits would make you feel better about your job? I would love for us to have dollars, but like I said, 800,000 gets a 1% raise. I mean, where does that money come from? And that's our biggest challenge, is trying to come up with ways of where we can save that money. And I think that's just something that I can't say right now, here's what I would do. But if I had some money, I would give it, but I don't have any. So. Thank you.
Next question.
Okay, do we have anybody from the audience? Renita?
Hi.
Well, first of all, thank you for running for, the position that you're running, and good luck to you all. I do have a question. How will you stay informed about higher education trends, developments, in order to make informed decision as a Board of Regents member?
Dedrick?
I think it's going to the CPE meetings, and pretty much, which I get the opportunity to do, pretty much the IR meetings of these type of meetings, and maybe it's the summits that CPE actually hosts to see like the different ideas that they have, and the performance funding metric. Most of us hear about it, and some of us are just like, don't really understand it as much, and how much it actually plays a part in like funding for some of these universities. And there are universities that don't get a dime off of this metric, these metrics. And so if we can find a way to maybe rework the metrics, or working with CPE to actually make them change those metrics where we can actually benefit more from it. But also at the same time, I think it's also researching different institutions. Maybe it's the higher ed education websites, which you can subscribe to those and see what other institutions are actually doing as well, in order to make changes and stay informed.
Audrey?
So staying informed about higher ed trends, there are obviously a lot of different ways to do that. Like Dedrick mentioned, it's research yourself. It's reading the Chronicle, it's reading articles, it's, getting those news blasts and staying up to date. I know the Regent is invited to the quarterly faculty staff leadership council meetings, and so we get a lot of really good update. And it's also leadership from Faculty Senate and Staff Congress who go to those. There's a lot of good updates from Dr. Jackson and his staff about issues that are going on, especially at the state level in terms of legislative meetings and the work that's going on during legislative sessions. I feel lucky to belong to TRIO, because TRIO has a really great parent company or parent organization, the Council for Opportunity in Education, and I'm able to travel to Washington, D.C. every March to be part of policy seminar and actually work with my congressional representatives and advocate not just for funding for our program, of course, but just for changes in policy that impact higher education across the nation. And so we get a lot of professional development and get a lot of information that comes monthly through that as well. But the main work is just, I think, on us as a Regent, being out, being visible, talking to folks, sharing information, you know, across departments, collaborating with the different groups, and being involved in as many meetings to have kind of your ear to the ground for what's going on.
And let's see, David.
I think, it's very simplistic to me. You have to read. I think you have to read. I don't have the time to go to meetings and stuff as they're talking about, because I do have a job that I have to work every day. So being able to read, being able to get the Chronicle, to be involved in organizations that are in higher education. I know that for housing, I have 2 or 3 different steps up to a national, and there's a lot of things that they bring back that are not just for housing, but issues that are affecting universities and colleges and laws and all these things are happening. I said, so there's a lot of opportunity there. I think the other thing, though, too, is to try to just know what's going on at Murray State with our staff and talk to them. Audrey, all of them said, have discussions. I think focus groups, people say you overuse it, but I really think those are good opportunities to get some feedback. But I know, too, there's information that comes to the Regents from the board, from the chair, from other individuals that will send to us. I know Jordan is a good opportunity to talk about what's happening in our state and in our and what's happening in the legislature and stuff. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of ways to go about doing it. But I do think reading, and I do have weekly calls with other housing directors in the state. And I talk to them about what's going on with their campuses and what they're dealing with. Now that isn't just the whole campus, but I feel like what happens in the housing sometimes is indicative of things that start to happen on campus as far as students. And that's really, to me, what I'm here for, is not just for staff, but to support the students. Because I feel like if there were no students and there were no staff, there were no faculty, there'd be no Murray State. That is what Murray State is. So, but asking those questions, reading, and when you can go to conferences, go to those. I think that would be very appropriate, and I would do that.
Leannna.
So I'm actually involved in NASPA and NACADA. I've previously been involved with CAPRO and the National Association for Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers as well. So I've been a part of these bodies to be able to make connections, and I think that's one of the most valuable things we can do. I've also collaborated whenever I see something that comes about in one of the many listservs or newsletters I subscribe to. I've also made a point to connect with those that I think may have power to influence some of those decisions on campus. So just for example, you know, when it comes to enrollment management, if I read something concerning enrollment management, I say, why aren't we doing that at Murray State? And I contact someone in enrollment management to say, what are the best practices that you're aware of as the subject expert in your field, so that you can tell me how we can work together to make something like that happen. So it's a very collaborative, giving information and also receiving information, reading, staying abreast of what's happening in the news. You know, career services and workforce development often influences higher education trends. Likewise, military conflicts, as if we have things going on with our military, which, you know, is near and dear to me because I worked in that office for 6 years here on campus. But we have to look at some of those larger economic trends as well to kind of see how higher ed's being influenced. So it's just having that overall picture of what's going on.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay.
So there are a lot of events on campus: family weekend, great beginnings, senior breakfast, the kids the other day came to the steps of Wells Hall and sang Christmas songs. So can you talk about the importance of the staff regent being at those events? And then also, how are you going to manage being at those events, given you have your busy schedules?
Audrey?
Obviously, it's an issue of time management and setting priorities. And to address the first part of your question, though, I do think it's important that the staff regent is visible and participating in activities. You know, it's not just these are student activities, these are staff activities, these are faculty activities, because David and everybody else up here has said, you know, we all make up Murray State. And if it's not, you know, we've seen arguments play out on social media, you know, if it wasn't for staff, you know, the university wouldn't work, or if it wasn't for faculty, you can have those questions all the time. It takes everybody, right? It takes the entire community. And I think that the more we can support each other, obviously, the better we're going to achieve the university's mission. So I think it's important to be there. I'm no stranger to working at home after hours. You know, there's a lot of the work that we do with our grant where, you know, days are taken up with meeting with students or doing activities or whatever, and then the paperwork and the kind of behind the scenes administrative stuff, all, you know, the emails and all that happens at night. So for me, that wouldn't be an issue. I think it's, you know, setting priorities and making sure that you're represented, and if you're staff regent, you know, you're taking on the role and representing the staff, and you need to be where the staff are when you're in that role. I'm lucky in that I have an office in which I've got co-workers, and there's good balance already in that office, and so I'm not saying that I would shift work off to them, but there are times where all of us step in, you know, especially during recruitment time at the early part of the year. We're all out at schools, whether that's our school or not. We're all out at those schools and those events, doing what we can to make the program successful. And so I know how to do that kind of work, and that would be the same kind of energy I would bring to this position.
And David?
I don't think anybody would say they're not important up here. If we did, then you would not vote for us at all. So, I mean, they are. I think the issue for me is I would have to have a monthly calendar, and I would have to lay out those events that I thought were the best to go to. My role model is Don Robertson, which means, but I will say I can never aspire to what he goes to. I would just have to quit my job, but he goes to everything. But I feel like there are things that we should be at, some of those landmark, especially where you have, like we had the children's Christmas the other day with Staff Congress. I think being there is a positive. We have a senior breakfast, and when you start at almost midnight breakfast, there's a lot of things that students go to, but there's also things that staff have. So I feel like that keeping myself abreast of what's happening, and then having networks of people that invite you to stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that happens that, I mean, let's be honest about it, not many sometimes, and I know if you don't like this, throw stuff at me, but I just don't, I hear a lot of people that don't go all the way through the racer news or the article that comes out of on Fridays. They just don't go all the way through it. So I would depend on people notifying me too and saying, hey, Dr. Wilson, this is going on, can you come to this? I get asked for stuff in housing a lot and try to go to those, so I think it's important, but I think you really have to be selective in what you can go to, because you're not going to be able to go to everything, and you don't want to upset people that you didn't go to their event. When I was a hall director, if I picked one RA's program over another, and they would let me know I didn't go to their program. But I think going to those, being there, and just watching our students and our staff and supporting them, anything that we have. But I think a calendar where I get invitations and I know what stuff is at, then I'll make it work, because my kids are grown, so it's me and a dog.
Leannna?
I think it's important for the staff regent to be where they can, when they can. But I do think it's also important to build that relationship with different departments on campus. So to, first of all, introduce yourself as staff regent, because there may be offices that don't know who you are, even if you're elected. So introduce yourself and let them know if there's ever a time that you want to see me present, or you need me to be there as a representative of the Board of Regents. Please let me know and ask. Likewise, I would ask that they share their calendars with me, because so many offices do so many things that it is nearly impossible to keep up with it if you're just trying to put it all on the website. So it's having that community already established, or building that, and making sure they know they can talk to you and ask that you be there. But I think just as important, if you can't be there, which will inevitably happen for one reason or another, that you send a message. You can send a message on behalf of yourself or the Board of Regents, or you can ask someone else to be there from the Board of Regents. And I think that's something that maybe is forgotten sometimes, or maybe people are hesitant to do, but you know, I would feel comfortable asking a faculty regent to be present if a staff regent couldn't be, just so that there is representation from the Board of Regents, because it's not just that set of individuals making choices or determining information that goes out to the campus. They're representing all of us.
And Dedrick.
Okay. So just kind of like David said, it's big for me to actually have a calendar, put that in place where I can actually see it. And honestly, I might have 3 or 4 calendars at this point. So I have the Google Calendar on my desk. And I agree with Leannna. A lot of these things you may not make. My wife is a big proponent of pretty much saying you make time for the things that you actually want to make time for. And so as a staff regent, these events and things like that are important. And so as you mentioned, like the elementary carolers, that's something I look forward to every year. You get the opportunity to see young children and possibly future racers coming to sing to us, and like it's a privilege that we get the opportunity to see those individuals. Also, it is, if you can't go, I know the Board of Regents, like Chair Leon Owens, he actually does go to a lot of the business at breakfast events and things of that nature. And when you can't make those events, if you could send a personal letter or note to those individuals saying, hey, I'm sorry, I wish I could have been there, just to show some compassion to them and let them know that that they're important. And then we can also look at like academic calendars on our website to actually find those events and things of that nature. But it is going to take actually making sure that you can balance your job and go to these events. And so it may take you coming in just a bit earlier to work to actually finish some things off, like with the iPad season is upon us at this point. And so, you know, you come in a bit earlier and then I'm here for different events and things like that. So it's going to be like being at those events just by making time for those events.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. We have any other questions?
Somebody else?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
Matt and Renita.
Oh, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, okay.
Either one.
All right. Another question. What is your opinion on the role of the Board of Regents setting university culture?
David, you get to go first.
I say I'll be honest and say what you didn't, that means you have not been honest this whole time. In a way, I think that when they only meet 4 times a year, it's really hard to have any kind of influence on the culture of the university in that respect. I feel like they can have that in certain ways, and when you look at their approval of hires, when you look at their approval of different aspects of the job they work on, when you look at how they're looking at building and where buildings are going, and when they're approving that does influence our culture. I think the way they can really have an impact on that is to support the units on our campus that are working toward that opportunity for students to have the culture of a campus, to look at the inclusivity. I've been reading a lot and seeing a lot lately we've been very fortunate, but up northeast and other areas with all the turmoil in the Middle East, there's a lot there's 3 university presidents had to go before Congress to ask how they were protecting their students, but also the right to free speech. And I think, you know, that as long as the board allows the university to run and allows us to support our students and allow for that opportunity for the speech, to help us to support, to make it on for them to say, hey, we want to diversify our staff, we want to diversify our campus, we support those initiatives. But I think those initiatives should really come from our staff, because they're the ones that are actually doing the work. But I do feel like that they have, in some ways, you know, they do have, because of the president and others, they do have a way to scope it, but they're only here so often, so it really falls to them to allow us to do it and support us as we do our job.
And let's see, next one is Leannna.
I think the board can set the tone for the whole university culture, and I think we have seen that in the past several years as we've had quite a bit of turnover for some of our regents. It's critical that each member of the Board of Regents walks the walk and talks the talk. I know that's cliche, but oftentimes this is a credential for those individuals. They are appointed. So the beauty of the faculty regent and the staff regent is that we're voted upon by our peers. We're on the front lines with these students and with our colleagues. And I think that it's very important that all members of the Board of Regents are open and honest with one another, that we hold one another accountable. Because if you see your board doing that, then it's easier for departments to develop that culture amongst themselves as well. I cannot stress enough the value of communication and relationship building. As alluded to already, it's difficult for those that are coming in quarterly or not participating on campus as often as some of the others to miss some of the very important things that are happening in pockets on our campus. And so it's important for the staff regent in particular to represent those pockets and make sure the president understands and also the other board members understand what's going on and what's needed for our collective culture.
Thank you. Dedrick.
I think David mentioned this yesterday, is that as the staff regent, it's going to be up to the staff regent to actually talk to the other regent members about our culture on campus. And pretty much we get to a point where in order to know what our culture is, we have to immerse ourselves in it. And so if our regents aren't immersing themselves in Murray State culture, it's hard to know what the culture is. You know, we always talk about, you know, racers first, and I know a big topic was outsourcing and things of that nature at one point. And we just get to a point where we don't want to see jobs and things like that outsourced, because that's not the Murray State culture here. We want to take care of our own. And so my thing is, like, in order for the board to actually be informed, other board of regent members should be informed, it falls on that regent chair, the staff regent chair, to actually inform them and let them know the things that are actually going on. Because now we have given them the message, we have like relayed this for the staff, and so now I think at that point they have all the information to make those decisions. But I do also believe that us as staff members, we still have to be a part of that conversation, and that's why this vote itself that the staff regent has, it's not for like our personal opinions, it's what our staff members want. So that's one thing that I believe that helps with the culture.
And Audrey.
You know, you can look at the things that the university values and the Board of Regents values by looking at the things that they vote on, right? The policies that they enact, the processes they put in place. That's where you know what matters to them. That's kind of how you see that play out. So there's a lot of things that they can say that we're promoting this kind of culture, we're trying to attract this type of student and everything, but it's still left to everybody on the ground, right, to actually make those things happen, to enforce them, to actually carry out the day-to-day work of that. And so I think that's where the culture gets developed. And I could just say ditto to everything that Dedrick just said, because I was sitting here writing notes, and then he starts talking, and I'm like, well, you just said what I was writing, you know. But it is, you know, in TRIO, because we work with pre-college students, we kind of feel separate sometimes from the rest of campus, and we want to fuss within our department that, oh, nobody knows what we do, or nobody understands that UB is a different program than Talent Search and everything. Well, it's our fault if they don't know that, because we're not getting out there and letting them know who we are and what we do and the differences in that. So we have to take some responsibility on that ourselves. And so I kind of think that that's the same thing like Dedrick was saying with the staff region. They're not going to know what's going on and what these different programs are and things unless the staff region is there, being that voice for the staff and making them know. And then inviting them to the things that we've got going on. As a staff, when we have different things happening in our departments, if we want the Board of Regents to know why those things are important and why they matter, we've got to invite them there and make them, you know, see. We've got to put the proof in front of them, you know, because that 4 times a year, there's already, you know, a whole agenda that they're facing and tons of stuff that they're doing. So we've got to find other ways to get that information out to them.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, Matt, you have a question? Yes.
Yeah, and Renita's first question kind of inspired this. Outside of budget, because we all know budget is a big thing, what do you feel is the biggest challenge facing higher education and facing Murray State, if they're different, aside from budget?
Yeah, you got to go first.
The biggest challenge facing higher education is perception. You can see this in almost any news article. We are having to tell individuals why higher education is still valuable. And so that by far is a challenge nationally, but that's also here at Murray State. It's difficult too because we have such a strong trade school system through the KCTCS schools. But that trend, if we are doing our job well, which many of us are, we can inspire others to continue coming to Murray State. It goes back to what I said about collaboration and communication with one another, but also working with community partners so that we can show for career readiness and workforce development that higher education still matters and it still can benefit you. That's something very near and dear to me because I just had a student leave Murray State to go work a job that, I won't name it, but it was a shame that she had to leave Murray State in the pursuit of higher education to go work this job for financial purposes when she's going to come back hopefully and try to find a way to make that work. And so I think that's the biggest challenge we've got going.
Dedrick.
A few things I will always end up saying like AI, because I mean, with the way that we're actually going with things, AI, we don't know like where it actually stands in higher education, and some of us don't know if it's good, if it's bad, and sometimes AI guns for a lot of our jobs. And so that's one thing that actually I keep at the forefront, but also, like Leannna said, that college experience, in my opinion. You have a lot of people that are actually wanting to go online, remote. And so my thing is like, that college experience was everything to me. And so being able to share that college experience with others and letting them know that, hey, this is something that you actually want to do, because if you don't do it, you know, you might regret that in life. And like, again, I actually wouldn't have been able to go to college if I didn't have a football scholarship and things of that nature. So that's one thing that those scholarship dollars actually help out, they are very important. And sometimes students worry about having that recurring money at times. programs. And so it's like, how can we actually make it to a point where they have recurring scholarship dollars? I think that, again, the administration is trying their best to find ways to get that recurring money, but those are things that I can actually think about. And
Audrey?
You know, as a trio professional, I have to echo, you know, what Leannna said about the perception of the value of a college education. Obviously, that is a huge issue. But I want to kind of approach this just looking faculty and kind of staff perspective, in the sense of, was part of a student affairs webinar earlier this week about staff wellness and just that whole work-life balance issue, right? We've got folks who feel overworked and underpaid and not appreciated and not valued, and listening to the panelists on that webinar, it was evident that that's not just a problem here, it's not just a problem in the state, it's a problem nationwide. And so I think, you know, we come back to, that's again part of the role of the, not just the staff regent, but working in collaboration with staff Congress, working in collaboration with the other committees that the staff regent will be a part of, is just addressing that, because that encompasses a whole range of things, right? When you talk about work-life balance, you talk about the necessity of changing some processes and changing some procedures and looking at ways that we can address all the issues that are part of that. And so I think as a whole, you know, again, it comes back to me as we meet the staff where they are, we listen to them, you know, I've been lucky to be chair of the staff survey committee for the last year or so, and part of the committee for the last 2 years. Brett was in charge of it before that. And like David has said, you know, the comments are eye-opening there. And so again, keep coming back and listening to those voices and getting that input. And not just saying, share with us the things that aren't great, but share with us the things that are great too, and how can we build on those, and how can we continue to use those to guide and move us forward.
And David?
So I'm not supposed to say budget, but poo on you. No, what I would say, to me, it's a combination of cost and value. When I went to school, the only way I paid for school, because I had a single mother, I didn't have any income, I got Pell Grants, I had work study, I was able to go to school. Wanted to go to University of Alabama, I couldn't afford it. Went to University of Montevallo, everything was taken care of, but I had to work for it. I have 2 kids now that graduated, both have over $25,000 in debt they've got to pay. There's a lot that have a lot more than that. But the cost of higher education, I think, is what is really a problem for higher education, is as much as you're having to pay to get a degree, and then you come out with some of our majors and they don't find a job. I think to address that, I really think career services, I think that other faculty, staff, others need to be a network for students to find jobs when they leave, to prove that value. Because right now, the big push is welding, is any kind of trade that you're going to go out and get that, and we got a lot of kids that are going that route. We have to turn that back in the nation. As far as Murray State, I will tell you, again, I think the worst thing that's facing Murray State is the culture and climate and the feeling of our staff. I mean, when you have people saying, I'm not happy, I'm underappreciated, nobody cares about me, I get bullied, I'm going to tell you, if the staff left, there would be no university. Because let's be honest, we do the dirty work for a lot of this university. And so when we have people that just tell me, I don't want to come to, again, I go back, we have to ask on the survey, have you thought about leaving the university this year? And we have people say, yes, I have, and why? I just think that's heartbreaking to me, because I love this place. I got 3 kids that graduated from here. So we've got to work at that for Murray State.
Next question.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Great. Do we want to, are we going longer than?
Well, we're going just how long people will
Okay.
ask questions. I'm here all afternoon.
Okay.
I'm not staying with you.
We'll do one question. If this works for you guys, we can do one question, and then we'll start with our closing comments. What impact do you feel you would have as serving as staff regent?
Oh,
And that
That goes
goes
to-
to Dedrick.
Oh, okay, so, I believe like just being in institutional research, I get to bring to the table like the knowledge of data and understanding and being able to dissect things. Honestly, I get to attend a lot of the like CPU meetings and things of that nature that could kind of help out with that Regent role and understanding that my understanding of the board budget books and understanding of the board meetings and things of that nature, that I actually view all those, watch all those, just to make sure that there's no data and things of that nature needed. But it's also making sure that our staff members are informed about the data and the actual facts that are presented. And like, so the sooner we can actually have those facts, the better we can actually provide that information to all staff members to make better decisions that benefit all like staff members, not just like one set of staff members, but the entire general population of staff.
Audrey?
well, first of all, let's just acknowledge that Jessica Evans set the bar pretty high as far as this is concerned, right? Following in her footsteps. I think she did an excellent job of keeping the staff up to date on what was going on, really explained things well, provided a lot of insight. And so my goal is to continue that, obviously, because I think it's necessary to make sure that our staff are well informed, that they understand what's happening, and they have the information that they need to make the decisions that they need to make, or that we as Staff Congress and we, as Staff Regent, we've got the information we need to make the decisions that we need to make. And so I've always considered myself to be a learner, a lifelong learner. I'm a voracious reader. I want to know all the things about what's going on. I want all those details. I want all that information. And so I try to make myself as well informed as I can be. And so obviously a lot of that involves just being an open door and an open ear for the staff and saying, here are the different ways that you can communicate with me. I'm open and want to hear what you have to say. And so providing lots of different opportunities and means for that. Setting up that level of communication is really important. Also, I consider myself to be a really highly organized person, good attention to detail, but also able to see the big picture. And so I think that those are skills that are also beneficial in this situation.
David?
So again, honestly, I can't tell you what impact I will have, because I don't know. But I can tell you what I will do. And what I will do is make sure that the board understands where the staff are on issues and concerns. I will make sure that they kept up to breast of what's going on, because, that it goes down to there's 8 votes plus 3. There's 8 that are nominated, there's 3. And a lot of times it's hard for 3 to change the 8, but always letting them know what's going on, letting them know how the staff feel. Using resources on campus, using Staff Congress as a vehicle and conduit to get information. But I also feel like I can also be in a position to let people know how the staff feel. Let's face it, worked for student affairs for many years. Now with housing still, those two groups have a pulse on students on campus. And so being able to talk to those and use those as so I can go back and say, here's what the students are feeling too. Because I think it's really important that I feel like my responsibility is to make sure that they know how the staff feel, that they know what's going on, that I can sway their minds, but I can always make sure that they understand and be a voice for staff. I feel like that's what we have to do. We are called to be for the university. That's what they tell us. You're not a staff regent. You are a staff regent, but you're a Murray State regent. I feel like you cannot be a staff regent or a Murray State regent without being for the students, staff, and faculty. Again, I say it may be cliche, but without those 3 groups, there's not a Murray State. And without the staff, there's really not a Murray State. So I feel like my impact will be that I will make sure they will probably get tired of hearing me say, well, this is how the staff feel. But I feel like they need to hear that. And then what decisions they make is what decisions they make, but they can have the information about those people that are most important to me.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Leanne.
Can I go?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
That's my question.
We're gonna leave you guys.
Well, just as I just did, I promised to ask questions. So what I can promise that my impact will be is hopefully positive, but I will be authentic, empathetic, and disciplined in whatever I do. So that transcends just everything, every facet of my life. But in this role, it's critical to me to set a good example. And so I try to do that in everything that I do anyway. But authentic leadership is important. So it's important to know what the staff feel, what concerns they have, to be empathetic to those, because we're not all facing the same challenges in our offices. We just aren't. Even faculty aren't. So it's important to know, big picture, what does the staff feel like at the university? How can I represent that viewpoint to this board in an informed, tactful way? It's never been a problem for me to suggest new ideas or challenge new ideas or current ideas. So I'm hopeful that any questions that I have to answer on behalf of staff or questions that I have to ask on behalf of staff would have a positive impact and support the mission of the university.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll take 2 minutes and have you guys to do closing comments.
Okay, first person is Audrey.
Feels like that was just random this time. But anyway, first of all, I just want to say thank you again to all of you who showed up today, those of you who showed up yesterday, those of you who are here online, for taking an interest in your staff region and the potential candidates for staff region. It shows that you value the opportunity to have your voice heard on campus, and you care about the impact or the situation that the staff as a whole are in. I'm going to say, like I said yesterday, whether I get this position or not, and I really truly do hope that you'll vote for me, and I will appreciate that, but I'm going to continue working for staff. I'm going to continue my work with Staff Congress, continue seeking a role on Staff Congress, continue looking for other ways to continue to help build staff up on campus and to continue to move forward. Murray State is an important place for me. It's become home for our family. And so, you know, I grew up in Hickman County, taught school there for several years, and had the opportunity to move here to Murray because it presented a better opportunity for my kids. And in the program that I work with our low-income first-gen students, you know, I know that the education can change lives generationally, right? We all know that happens, and so for a lot of us, I think that's why we're here. But I want that to extend to our campus as a whole. I want for folks who don't feel like this is the best place for them to find ways to change their minds and to make this a better place for everyone. So I appreciate your vote. I'm going to do my best. And I think that's, you know, we can say that for everybody up here. So I wish everyone the best.
And thank you. David.
Thanks for coming. I would say to you that if you have any other questions, you can always contact one of us if you want to ask for a little more detail on what we said. But, you know, I have 3 kids that graduated from Murray State, been here 27 years. I love this place, and I love my kids love it. So, you know, one is actually works on campus here. So for me, looking at being staff regent, I tried last time, and I'll try again. I just feel like it's an opportunity to support the staff in ways that I haven't been able to do before. I do feel like continuing to try to look at some type of structured raises, but on top of that, knowing that we got to look at the benefits, we've got to look at what we can do. I understand the desire and need for this remote work policy thing, but I also know that for groups like FM that can't do that, is how do we give them some type of benefit within this? Because I know we can't be equity in everything, but there's gotta be something we can try to do to help. I've really got to feel like that we've got to try to help offices by getting a handle on the hiring process and what we can do to help with that. And if individuals are taking on extra work, how are they being compensated? Is it for a long haul? Is it short term? Is there something we can do with that? And then, you know, I feel like we've really got to reach out to our extended campuses. We need to really make them feel a part, because at times they don't. We visit a few of those. They just sort of feel distant. That's because they are, but we can reach out to them. And then last, again, I just tell you, my heart aches for there to be people that aren't happy on campus and that don't like their job. My staff, I just had 3 retire recently for 20, 25 years working for me. I've got student staff I keep for 4 or 5 years. And it's because I try to create an environment where they feel empowered, they feel loved and cared for. We've got to do that. And I appreciate your vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Leannna.
Okay. I want to say thank you again for being here and for watching and for asking questions. I would be honored to represent you, and I would do my best to represent you and be an advocate for the staff of Murray State. I do think that the relationships I've built with individuals on campus will continue to develop and would be an asset to this role. And I would continue to work toward more collaborative efforts so that we all have better work-life balance, but specifically that we're able to take care of ourselves well and take care of one another well. Yesterday I mentioned that it's very important to me that we have environments where we feel like we can be heard and supported, and so that's really just what I want to inspire with everyone as a staff Congress, former member of staff Congress, I'm not now, but as staff Regent, that would be what I would aim to do, is just make sure that we have a workplace where we feel like we can share ideas, just as we expect students to be able to share ideas and faculty to share ideas. I would be happy to work for benefits for us, to maintain the benefits that we have. No doubt we do have tremendous benefits as employees of the university, despite what negative comments we might make every now and then when we're a little disgruntled. This is a great place to work, and I'd be happy to be part of the board. Thank you again, and remember to vote next week.
And Dedrick.
Okay, so one thing that I can actually say, thank you guys for actually coming, and all the people that are showing up today. Like, we are doing well compared to yesterday. Thank you guys that are on Facebook, that are actually watching. One thing that I can say about this position itself, we all know that it's not a position where we should make empty promises or promise things that we can't actually contribute. It's not about any of us padding our resumes or anything of that nature. As staff regent, it's important for whoever gets this position to listen before we actually make any decisions. So listening to the staff, any chance we actually get, holding listening sessions in order to make sure that we actually have the staff's best interest at heart. I know that sometimes we feel that we as staff members feel that faculty and staff can't get along together. So I believe that it's working with faculty and staff to make a better place for it. And like David said, without the students, this place doesn't run. Without the faculty, this place doesn't run. Without the staff, this place doesn't run. We're all one unit. And so it's just kind of like the offensive line. We might not always get the credit, but we know the job is actually getting done, and we know that what needs to be done in order to further and make Murray State a better place. So thank you guys for coming out again, and I appreciate your vote. Go Racers.
Okay. I want to thank you all.
I
want to thank you all as candidates for sitting and answering questions and participating in this forum. It's important for our staff to be able to hear from you and to have an opportunity to ask those important questions to them. Remember, voting takes place next week. You can access the portal, the voting portal on your My Gate tab, and you will, the voting opens at 12 a.m. on Tuesday, December the 12th, and runs through 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday the 13th. It is all online. And again, thank you for running for our candidates and for those of you in attendance and online.
Trish,
Go vote, yes.
I'm sorry. And like David said, if anyone actually has any questions about
Yes.
any policies or anything like that, please reach out to us. We're willing to share those.
Yes, and I have to echo that as well. Staff Congress members, we were always open to hearing from our staff members. We have a monthly meeting that's open to the public, that it's streamed online, and you're welcome to attend. That's what we're here to do, is to advocate for our staff and try to do the best. You know, we're all in this together, you know, period. So if you have any questions afterwards, please stop us, but thank you all so much. Great job, you guys.
Hey, I try to keep it clean.
I thought we had more even then I get up or not.
Stop.
Hey, that's just like we were talking about with like leadership or things of that nature.
How's your finals week?
So some of the like recruitments were
Can I
like
get my keys?
finding
How are you doing?
stuff like that.
Emma. Thank you.
Oh, no, keeper of the keys.
Do you have your phone? Also had the debit card in there. I mean, he had a lot of power.
There's your Christmas shopping right there.
Services, it's for your.
Oh, well, he wanted to know how to work.
Oh, there's so many. Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Oh, that's Dedrick. That's Dedrick. Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna
Do we hit stop on this?
Yeah, I can do it just whichever way.